So this is sort of an impromptu review. I don't even know if review is the right term. Yeah, it is. It is. Okay. So I've been moving recently, resetting everything up, trying to get all my components situated because where I was originally living, everything was kind of slapped together haphazardly as I added components to the system. And so now that I've got a relatively stable list of components, I've been trying to get everything organized in a way that is very clean, very easy to understand how everything's wired. And so I've been working on getting everything hooked up at my new place. This is essentially going to be like my review bench. I can insert a picture of what my desktop situation is going to be like. I'm not going to say it's just for aesthetics, but my desktop definitely has a cleaner look to it. And the components I have there are really more for like pleasing listening, I guess. I don't want to say that either because I don't want to suggest that these aren't pleasing to listen to. But this is definitely going to be much more music-based listening over here, whereas my desktop setup is just having fun, video games, entertainment. Obviously, I'll do music listening there too, but it's not analytical listening, right? It's just me having my normal me time, I guess. So again, hopefully I threw a picture on there. So anyway, I'm working on getting everything set up, and I've been having kind of a hard time. There's not a lot of, I don't know what the term would be. I was looking for interconnect RCA cables on Amazon. Let me see if I can go pull a fresh one right now. Hold on. So originally I was using old kind of long surplus cables, like these old RCA cables, right? My dad has an old collection. I was just sort of making use of what he had. So this is the original stuff, right? Crap that looks like it came straight out of a 70s catalog. You never see stuff like this anymore, right? And so I was going through Amazon and I was looking through cables. And I settled on picking up two different ones just to kind of give them a try, see if the length was right on the cables and what the cable quality themselves were like. So I ended up picking up a few sets of these Monoprice cables because it had pretty good ratings and it was a decent length. However, there's a couple things I want to say. The first is the quality of the cables themselves looks okay. It's all right. It's a very thick cable, and the connections themselves look sturdy enough, but there's not really any relief for these things. And so I ended up with this mess you see back here. I was trying to connect. Here's a basic diagram, right? I have the shit Modi 3 going to the mass drop and THX 789. The 789 is going to go to the topping, and the topping is going to go to the valley, and then the valley is going to go to the stacks. And so there's a lot of interconnections going. Every amp here, except for the stacks, really is going to have two sets of RCA cables plus the power connection. And I was using this to try and hook everything up, right? However, because these cables are so thick and so stiff, I actually wasn't even able to get... Look what happens, right? When I just want to back it up a little bit. There's no room because there's no relief on these cables. So, and the cables themselves are not what I would call supple. There's not a lot of give. So there's almost no ability for me to try and use these as an intermediate length interconnect because of how stiff they are. I just cannot get them to line up. And the thing is, it's pretty precisely measured out. If I want to get my record player into the space over here on the right, I have to get the DAC and amps as far to the left as possible. So I can also fit my shit Manny phono preamp along with my record player. So here's the problem. These. Because I don't want to pay the money. I'm sorry, shit. I love your pissed cables. I got a set way back, and I've been using them since. I think since the Valley 1 with the Madi 2 Uber? Magni 2 Uber? Madi 2 Uber. The second generation Uber, I don't remember which. I ended up having both anyway, I think, so it's not really that big of a differentiation. Anyway, I had the pissed cables, and I liked them. They work great as interconnects. There's not a lot of length that you can, use them for. They're not like super long, but they're usable. They are flexible, even though they don't have like a springy sort of relief. Because the cables themselves are supple, I don't have to worry about it. I'm using them back there, and it's not pushing anything out. It's fine. I love them. They're great cables. Now, with these with these Monoprice cables that I got, I also ordered a different set from a company called Seismic Audio. And I'm using these over on my desktop setup right now. I was just kind of trying them out to see if I like them. And I have to say that these are by far the superior cable. Now, the length on them isn't super long. You can get longer sets. I mean, you can see right here, right? It's just a little bit shorter. But the cable themselves have actual strain relief. This has been a problem on all of them, by the way. That little shield comes off. You can just screw it back on, though. Get it tight. The cables themselves are supple. There's give. It's not fighting me whenever I want to move it, right? And they're still decently thick, right? I'm not worried that these are going to break on me yet. I mean, you can get them in black. I actually kind of like the red aesthetic, but you can get them in black. And I'm going to be rewiring, getting everything reset up over here using these cables. And I just wanted to say that these Seismic Audio cables, I've been testing them. Well, I shouldn't say testing them. I'm not like doing critical listening, right? They're just cables. But I've been using them over on my desktop setup now for about a week and a half-ish. They sound fine. They sound like they're passing the signal through like they ought to, right? I'm not expecting them to magically transform the signal. They're passing the audio signal. And they do it in a way that I can actually route the cables in a semi-functional way without having to redesign everything. And it's not literally pushing my components off where they don't need to be because of how stiff and how poorly they fit against a wall area. Now, if you had more space in the backside, I mean, I would actually argue that because of how stiff these cables are, that extra length really isn't going to account for much unless they're actually like 180 degrees. The components are 180 degrees from each other, or you're wrapping it top to bottom like this, because you need so much lead up of cable because of how poorly they flex. You're essentially losing that in the bend anyway because of how far back they have to bend before you can actually get them to settle into the component, right? So, for instance, if we look over here, I basically have maybe... Actually, I can measure that. Can I measure that? I should be able to measure that. Right? That's not asking for too... Let me go see if I have a tape measure. You basically need about 2.5 inches of lead up in order for that bend to work. Whereas these, you don't have to worry about it so much, So you're almost making that length of cable back just in how flexible these are, depending on how much room you have back there, right? So, I mean, I'm just really disappointed in these Monoprice cables, A. And B, if you need an alternative, if the length will work for you, I highly recommend these Seismic Audio Cables on Amazon. They work. They get the job done. And they do it in a way where I don't feel like I'm having to fight the cables, which is good. Normally I'm a proponent of the Amazon Basics cable, and for longer distances, I'm still all about that Amazon Basics life. But if you need shorter interconnect cables, somewhat in the line of the shit piss cables, which I have back here still, then these Seismic Audios are a good replacement. They're not as short as the shit piss. They still have a little bit extra run compared to them. But it's not by much, and because of how flexible and soft and how much give there is on these, it's, you know what, I think for the price, it's really hard to argue with. I think these ended up being like $7 a pair, and they work, So I recommend giving those a shot. I think that for the price, I think you can get them in like a 2-pack, or you can also get them individually. I like the aesthetic. I like the quality of the cable itself. Yeah. So that's my thoughts on the Monoprice cable. I'll throw like a link to the Amazon store page for the Seismic Audio Cables, and I'll throw some pictures on for the Monoprice and the Seismic, so you know what I'm talking about, the very specific models of Monoprice cables. I haven't dealt with many Monoprice cables, but these particular ones that I have are just substandard, I think, for the intended use, which is you're trying to, connect things very closely together. They don't do that job. So anyhow, this is Adios Amigo. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day.